Good morning and welcome to Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Swami Ram Tirath, a professor teaching the prestigious college in Lahore at that time, one day packed up and then became a Swami. The professor turned Swami wrote a number of books, but the most well-known is In the Woods of God-Realisation. Not very well known as Swami Vivekananda, but his perfect scientific approach, coupled with his spirituality, imparts a new dimension to Vedanta philosophy. And would you believe that when I read this book, my father gave it to me, we used to have, my dad and myself, long discussions. And the discussions were about God. My father was firm believer in God and I was an absolute atheist, if not an agnostic. And then he said, okay, why don't you read this book, Woods of God-Realisation? Fair enough. I must be at the age of 10 when I read that book. And in one book, he's seen talking to a man like me. He writes that the young man didn't believe in God. And his plea used to be, can you see God? The reply was no. So he said, why should I believe something which I can't see, which I can't touch, which I can't feel? Swami Ram Tirath asked him, do you believe that the cow gives milk? Yes. From where does it come? From the teats. When you milk the cow, the milk comes from the teats of the cow. Okay, go cut the teat. What would come? Blood. So where's the milk? You don't see the milk inside the cow. Same way, God is inside you. Now that opened me to a new thought. Yes, I can't see milk, and yet the milk comes out of the cow. I can't see God, so it might quite possible that God must be wanting somewhere around within me. And the next line which he wrote made such an impact on me. He said, I call my religion Vedantic humanism, meaning thereby that man himself is divine. This was an absolute unique call of a practical Vedanta. Here Vedanta does not remain an empty philosophy, but becomes a means of becoming and being. When every human being is divine, naturally, the whole philosophy of the world as a unit. And not when I say world, I don't mean only the human beings, I mean even the animals, the insects, the vegetation, the rivers, the mountains, the snows, the winds, the deserts, the waves of the ocean, whatever you want to call it. They are all a representation of the God. And in this way, Swami Ram Tirath, in the Woods of God-Realisation, told us that you have to look at Vedanta as a means of knowing and realizing, being and becoming, or rather becoming and being. Now that sort of a thing gave a new dimension and a paradigm shift to the philosophy of Vedanta. As a matter of fact, with Swami Ram Tirath started a new movement which reignited the core of the Upanishadic postulates. People talk of Vedas all the time, but Upanishads are equally, if not more important. And the core Upanishadic postulate is that the people who alone live experience and realize the universal harmony of love. The people alone can do it. No outside agency, no guru, no teacher can teach you or make you understand the universal harmony which you have to experience yourself. And then Vedanta does not remain dry as dust intellectual grasp of philosophy. It's a total offering of the body and mind at the altar of love. So love permeates everything. The essence of this spiritual law is a composition called the faith. And then when I read these lines, what care I for caste or creed? It's the deed, it's the deed. What for class or clan? It's a man, it's a man. What for crown or crest? It's the heart within the breast. Now these 4 lines, this quatrain, what care I for caste or creed? Is the deed, is the deed. But for class or clan is the man, is the man. What for crown or the crest is the heart within the breast. That opened a new vista and opens a new vista for anybody. Your love of the love in the heart encompassing the whole universe is the real Vedanta. And then in expounding Vedanta as a supreme art of living, there's a movement going on in India by one of the Swamis, art of living. But Vedanta becomes the supreme art of living, where you see an empirical world as a beautiful manifestation of the self. And in that negating the material world, you are able to see beauty and joy in each object. And each object replenished, decorated with the beauty and joy, is a manifestation of the divine. That is what I found in these 2 books, Woods of God-Realisation. The body and the mind can be practically renounced only when the flame of love is lit. An ability to see each one as a part of your own self. You project your mind, your heart, to the other person, to the other entity, to the tree, to the flower, to the grass, to the waving, to the chirping of the sparrows, and so on. And then, when they become an extension of yourself, then this flame of love lights up the fire of freedom, the real freedom, the spiritual freedom, the freedom from the chains of attachment. And the affirmation of this physical world enables us to view the modern ideal of democracy, socialism, human rights as spiritual manifestations. And these are the real ideals of Vedanta as perceived by Swami Ram Tirath. Swami Ram Tirath was, in fact, gearing up the philosophy in a normal manner to make it applicable. Instead of being dull, dreary subject, it becomes a way of living. And that's a real art of living. He converts the concept of Vedanta as a practical, everyday happening which can be practiced. And that's a cornerstone of the thinking of Swami Ram Tirath. And then you can't preach it. You have to practice first. Once you practice it, then you can preach it. And if you don't practice Vedanta in everyday life, what's the use of it? That's what Swami Ram Tirath asks. And here he differs from Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Swami Vivekananda. They say, you learn and then you preach. He says, no, you don't preach. Your practice would make others believe it. Vedanta is a whole truth. And it is killed if it is not lived. So living makes it become alive. Live it, and other people, it's like a chain of firecrackers. You lit one and others would automatically be lit. So that's it. And then Swami's use of the term Vedanta was not merely referring to a particular philosophy or a speculative thought, but it was the way to find source of happiness in an expansion of self. You expand your inner self. That's why it becomes a part of the cosmos. The whole wide world is a manifestation of the cosmos, of the God. And rather he compares it to a magnificent forest. An extension of the self, he would often state. And only a narrow-necked brain intellect of yours is preventing you from seeing the head. He says, well, if you are a person with a narrow neck, you can't turn around. How can you see it? You are just looking ahead. So you have got to have what I normally call a helicopter view. And then you would see the whole. When you go up, when you are enlightened, your vision is perfect. And his vision of a new practical Vedanta was a call to see all things in oneself and oneself in all things. Vedantic realization is hard, agreed. But it's hard for a vast majority of people because they think they have to change themselves into God. No, you don't have to change into God. You are already a God. And you are nothing but God. So realize that you are a God and you are free. So it's just a matter of realization. People say he has become a sannyasi and is actually to go and search for God. He says, why search for God? You are a God, realize it. And this, if you see, correlates with what Guru Nanak did. He immersed himself in the river Vai. He was inside, people thought he's drowned, and he comes back after 3 days. A changed man, a new man. He realized that he is a God. And then he did not preach, he practiced. And that, as a matter of fact, Swami Ram Tirath also refers to Guru Nanak in this context. He says he is a sterling example of Vedanta living. Because once you realize you are a God, and you believe every manifestation of nature is God, then you are free. Then you have the brain to understand, and the eyes to see one God and one humanity, ek onkar, what Guru Nanak says. So Ram Tirath's clarion call redefines the notion of the material world as a manifestation of the divine world. And can you believe it? As a matter of fact, Iqbal was quite impressed, the poet Iqbal, who wrote Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara by Ram Tirath's this book. And in his poetry are a complete synchronicity of this line. Ah, खोला किस अदा से तूने Raze Rang Obbu. How beautiful you have expressed the secret of life. So where? At the secret of life, Vedanta is not just a philosophical abstract, but a living experience in which the small I fades away, becomes a big I, and that is the expansion of love for all. This aspect of Vedanta, ignored by almost 99.9% of the philosophers, Swamis and others, is a living exposition of this great philosophy practiced by real good saints like Nanak and Gobind Singh, like Swami Ram Tirath, even Paramhans, because they lived the philosophy, and then when that philosophy is lived, it becomes a manifestation. So it's a clarion call to human beings. Realize yourself in a wood and realize God, but not live in a wood. Consider wood. The whole world is a wood. And that is what he says. The God realization is realize yourself. And once you realize yourself, you have realized God and become absolutely free from all chains. Thank you.